I still remember the exact smell in the air that night, a mix of cold rain and cheap perfume. I had been smiling the entire drive to Ethan's apartment, my chest warm with pride. 3 years together, and tonight, we were celebrating his promotion. I had even bought a bottle of his favorite champagne. The elevator ride felt endless. My heels clicked on the hallway tiles, each step humming with anticipation. I didn't knock, I never knocked. I just turned the key he had given me, stepped inside, and called out, "Ethan. You're not dressed yet, are you?" Silence, then a muffled laugh, a woman's laugh. I froze. My mind immediately reached for the harmless explanation. Maybe one of his co-workers had come over, maybe Olivia from accounting. But as I walked toward the bedroom, the laugh turned into a low, breathy moan. My fingers tightened around the champagne bottle until the cold glass burned my palm. I pushed the door open. Time stopped. There they were, Ethan, shirtless, tangled in the sheets with Lena Scott, my best friend since college. Her lipstick smeared, her hair messy, her eyes catching mine without a flicker of shame. My throat closed. I couldn't speak at first. My chest felt hollow, as if every breath was falling straight through me. What is this? My voice trembled, barely holding itself together. Ethan's head snapped toward me, his eyes wide. It's not what it looks like. Lena smirked, brushing her hair back as if we were having coffee and not this. "Oh, come on, don't make it sound worse than it is," she said, her tone dripping with mock sweetness. "Worse than it is." My laugh came out sharp and broken. "You're sleeping with my fiancé. How much worse could it be, Lena?" Ethan swung his legs off the bed, reaching for his shirt. I was going to tell you. We didn't mean for it to happen. You didn't mean for it to happen." I could feel the heat rising in my face, my pulse hammering in my ears. "How long, Ethan?" "Weeks, months. Tell me how many times you lied to me while looking me in the eye." He opened his mouth, but Lena answered for him. 6 months, she said flatly, still sitting there like a queen on stolen territory. "He told me you were too busy for him, that you didn't understand him the way I do." The words sliced through me. I remembered every late night I stayed at work so we could afford our dream apartment. Every time I skipped nights out with friends so I could help him prepare for his big presentations. I swallowed hard, fighting the tears that threatened to spill. "You," I said, looking at Lena, "was supposed to be my sister in everything but blood. And you," I turned to Ethan, my voice breaking, "you were supposed to be my forever." Ethan stepped closer, his voice low, almost pleading. "It was a mistake, okay? I still love you." Love. The word was bitter on my tongue. "You don't even know what love is." Lena rolled her eyes. "Don't be dramatic. We didn't plan this. We just connected." Something in me snapped. I set the champagne bottle on his dresser, the one I bought him for his last birthday, and picked up my purse. My hands were shaking, but my voice came out calm, almost cold. "You've both made your choice. And I'm making mine." Ethan's face fell. "You can't just walk out. We can fix this." I laughed, short and humorless. "I'm not here to fix broken people who chose to break me first." For a moment, no one spoke. The rain outside tapped against the window like a soft drumbeat, marking the seconds between us. I took one last look, not because I wanted to remember, but because I wanted to burn this scene into my memory. A reminder, a warning. "I will never," I said, my voice steady now, "beg for love again." And with that, I walked out. I didn't slam the door. I didn't scream. I just let the silence swallow me as I stepped into the hallway, each footstep carrying me further away from the life I thought I had. By the time I reached my car, the tears finally came. Hot, unstoppable, blurring the city lights into shapeless colors. I gripped the steering wheel until my knuckles whitened, telling myself over and over, "Don't turn back. Don't give them the satisfaction." That night, I lost my fiancé. I lost my best friend. But somewhere, deep inside, I knew I had also lost the version of myself who accepted less than she deserved. And maybe, just maybe, that was the beginning of something better. The first few weeks were a blur. I didn't answer my phone. I ignored the doorbell. My apartment became a cave, the blinds drawn, the air heavy. I barely ate. Showers became optional. Some days, I just lay there staring at the ceiling, replaying that night over and over until it made me physically sick. Friends tried calling. I let every call go to voicemail. Work sent emails, then warnings. I didn't care. The world kept moving, but I was stuck in that moment, the moment I opened the bedroom door and saw the life I thought I had shatter in front of me. One rainy evening, I found myself holding an old photograph. My mother and I, standing by the ocean, her arm wrapped around me. I could almost hear her voice, gentle but firm, "Don't die while you're still alive." It was like a match striking in the dark. The next morning, I got up before sunrise. I forced myself into the shower, scrubbed away the weeks of neglect, and dressed in my best work outfit. My reflection in the mirror still looked tired, my eyes shadowed, but for the first time in weeks, I saw me. When I walked into the office, the chatter paused. People looked at me, some with sympathy, some with curiosity. I ignored both. I kept my head high and went straight to my desk. "Wow," a familiar voice said softly behind me. "And here I thought we'd have to send a rescue team." I turned to see Olivia Hayes, my favorite coworker. She wasn't the kind of friend who asked 100 questions. She was the kind who brought coffee and pretended everything was normal until you were ready to talk. "Hey," I said, my voice rough. "I'm back." She studied me for a moment, then handed me a paper cup. "Double shot, extra sugar. Emergency dose." I smiled faintly. "Thanks, Liv." We worked in comfortable silence for the rest of the morning. But during lunch, as we sat in the break room, she leaned closer. "You don't have to tell me what happened. But I know you, and I know you're not going to let whatever it was keep you down forever." I stared at my sandwich, unsure what to say. She shrugged. "Just start with one thing a day. Get up, show up, eat, the rest will follow." Her words stuck with me. Over the next few weeks, I made small steps. I stopped avoiding people in the hallway. I went back to my morning coffee runs. I even started answering calls from old friends. One afternoon, I overheard a group of colleagues talking by the water cooler. "Did you hear? Ethan Carter got married," one of them whispered. "Already? To who?" another asked. "Her name's Lena, I think. They had some fancy destination wedding. Instagram's full of it." I felt the words like a physical blow, but I didn't flinch. I walked past them as if I hadn't heard a thing. Later that night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, letting the reality sink in. Ethan hadn't just replaced me, he'd made it official with the one person I thought I could trust. For a moment, the old heartbreak tried to claw its way back in. But this time, something inside me shifted. If they wanted to parade their happiness in front of the world, let them. I wasn't going to compete. I wasn't going to chase. I wasn't going to waste another tear. I whispered into the quiet, "This is my life now, and I'm taking it back." The next day, Olivia noticed the change before I even realized it myself. "You're smiling," she said, raising an eyebrow. "Am I?" I asked, surprised. "Yeah," she grinned. "Careful, people might start thinking you're dangerous again." I laughed, shaking my head. But deep down, I knew she was right. I was dangerous now, not because I wanted revenge, but because I had nothing left to lose. And that, I realized, made me free. It was a Friday afternoon when Olivia cornered me in the break room, her eyes sparkling with a kind of mischief that made me instantly suspicious. "What?" I asked, sipping my coffee. "You've been working too much," she said matter-of-factly. "So, you're coming with me to meet someone tonight?" I groaned. "Liv, if this is a setup, I swear." "It's not a setup," she interrupted quickly. "It's my cousin. He owns a cafe. We're just going for coffee." "That's it." I raised an eyebrow. "Aha, and why exactly am I going for coffee with your cousin?" She smiled knowingly. "Because you need to be reminded that not all men are Ethan Carter." I wanted to argue, but the truth was, I hadn't sat across from a man without some kind of emotional baggage since the breakup. Maybe coffee wasn't a bad idea. That evening, Olivia and I walked into a cozy little cafe tucked into the corner of a quiet street. The place smelled like fresh bread and cinnamon. Soft music played in the background, and the warm lighting made everything feel safe. Behind the counter stood Daniel Moore. Tall, with sleeves rolled up and flour dusted across his forearm, he looked up from the espresso machine and smiled, not the kind of smile Ethan used to give, calculated and charming, but a simple, genuine one. "Hey, Liv," he greeted, then glanced at me. "And you must be the friend she's been talking about." I frowned slightly. "What exactly has she been saying?" Daniel chuckled, wiping his hands on a towel. "Only that you're smart, stubborn, and probably going to judge my latte art." Olivia laughed while I rolled my eyes. "Well, she's not wrong," I said, trying to hide the small smile tugging at my lips. He made us both coffee and joined us at a table. Conversation was awkward at first. He asked polite questions, and I gave short answers. I wasn't trying to be cold, I just didn't know how much of myself I wanted to share. "So," he said after a moment, "Liv tells me you've been through a rough time." I shot Olivia a look. "Did she also tell you I don't like talking about it?" Daniel raised his hands in mock surrender. "Fair enough, we can stick to safer topics." He leaned forward slightly. "Pineapple on pizza, yes or no?" I blinked at him. "That's your safe topic." "Hey, you'd be surprised how passionate people get about it," he said with a grin. I smirked despite myself. "No, absolutely not." He gasped in exaggerated horror. And here I thought we could be friends. The banter was light, easy. For the first time in months, I found myself laughing without forcing it. Daniel wasn't trying to impress me. He wasn't waiting for an opening to talk about himself. He just listened. At one point, I mentioned offhand that I hadn't had a decent chocolate chip cookie in ages. The next thing I knew, he was behind the counter again, pulling a tray from the oven. "Try this," he said, setting a warm cookie in front of me. I broke off a piece and took a bite. It was perfect, soft in the middle, crisp at the edges. "Okay," I admitted, "this is dangerously good." He smiled. "Consider it a bribe so you'll come back." I shook my head, trying to hide the way my chest felt a little lighter. "You're ridiculous." "Maybe," he said, "but I'm also persistent." When Olivia and I finally left, she shot me a smug look. "Told you he was nice." I didn't answer right away. My mind was replaying little moments, the way Daniel remembered what I said, the way he never pushed when I didn't want to talk, the way he made space for my silence. I wasn't ready for anything more than friendship. My heart was still too raw, my trust too fragile. But something about him felt safe. And maybe, just maybe, safe was exactly where I needed to start. By the time spring rolled around, I was breathing easier. I still had bad days, nights where I stared at the ceiling replaying that apartment scene over and over, but they came less often. Daniel's quiet presence and Olivia's relentless cheer had pulled me out of the worst of it. That's when I started hearing whispers, not from gossip magazines, but from the people who actually knew Ethan Carter. At lunch one afternoon, Olivia leaned across the table. "So, you didn't hear it from me, but Ethan's not doing so well at his new job." I raised an eyebrow. "Really, the golden boy?" She shrugged. "Apparently, his team leadership style isn't working out. And Marcus Reed, you remember him? His mentor, they're barely speaking now." Marcus Reed. I remembered him well. Ethan used to sing his praises, swearing Marcus was the reason he was climbing the ladder so fast. If Marcus had distanced himself, something had gone seriously wrong. Part of me wanted to dig deeper. The other part told me it wasn't my business anymore. Then came the networking event. I'd almost skipped it, but Olivia insisted. "You need to get back out there professionally," she'd said. The hotel ballroom buzzed with small talk and clinking glasses. I was halfway through a conversation about a marketing campaign when I felt it, that prickle at the back of my neck. I turned. Ethan. He looked almost the same, but not quite. The sharpness in his eyes had dulled, and his smile, when he spotted me, didn't reach them. Lena stood beside him in a tight, glittering dress, her hand looped through his arm. Her smile was perfect, but something in the way it froze made it feel rehearsed. Well, Ethan said as he approached, voice dripping with the kind of charm that used to make me weak. "If it isn't the one that got away." I forced a polite smile. "Ethan." Lena leaned in and air-kissed my cheek, her perfume cloying. "It's been so long. I've been meaning to call you." I almost laughed. "Sure you have." Ethan glanced around, as if making sure people were watching, then launched into a story about a project he was leading. His words were slick, but there was an edge to them, the kind that comes when someone is trying too hard. "That's impressive," I said evenly, sipping my drink. "I hear you're doing well," he added, tone light but probing. "Still at the same company?" "Yes," I said. "Still doing the work I love." Something flickered in his expression. Jealousy, regret, I couldn't tell. Lena excused herself to say hello to a friend, though her glance toward the bar told me she was just getting a drink. That left Ethan and me standing there, the hum of the crowd filling the silence. "You look happy," he said finally. "I am," I replied. And it was true, not perfect, not healed, but happy enough to mean it. His gaze lingered a second too long, and I wondered if he was remembering the girl who once believed in him without question. Just then, Marcus Reed appeared. Older now, silver streaking his hair, but still carrying that commanding presence. "Ethan," Marcus said, voice clipped. "We need to talk about Monday's meeting." Ethan stiffened. "I'm in the middle of a conversation." Marcus's eyes flicked to me, polite. "But cool. I'm sure it can wait." Ethan muttered something under his breath and followed Marcus out of earshot. I watched them go, catching a flash of irritation on Ethan's face and the stern, almost disappointed look on Marcus's. Olivia found me a few minutes later. "You okay? I saw who you were talking to." "I'm fine," I said, and I meant it. There was a quiet satisfaction settling in my chest, not gloating, not exactly. More like justice balancing itself out. I didn't need to humiliate him or dig for details. I could already see the cracks forming, the way Lena's attention wandered, the way Marcus barely tolerated him. As I left the event that night, I realized something. Once, I'd thought Ethan Carter was the center of my universe. Now, he was just a man in a crowded room, one whose light was starting to fade. And I didn't need to be the one to blow it out. It was a quiet Tuesday morning when Daniel asked me the question that made my chest tighten. We were sitting in his cafe before opening hours, the smell of freshly ground coffee beans warm in the air. He had that thoughtful look on his face, the one where his eyebrows draw together, like he's turning something over in his mind. "I've been thinking," he started, pouring us both mugs of coffee. "About the cafe, about us." I looked up from my notebook. "Okay." He took a deep breath. "I want to open another location, maybe two, but I can't do it alone. I want you to be my partner, not just in life, but in this." For a moment, I just stared at him. Partner, the word felt heavy, like it carried more than just business responsibility. "I don't know, Daniel," I said slowly. "That's a lot of trust, a lot of risk." He smiled faintly. "You've been here helping me every weekend for months. You've got an eye for things I miss. People like you, you make the place warmer. I don't just want your help, I want to build this with you." I set my coffee down, my fingers tightening around the mug. "You know I'm not good at this. Trusting people, letting them in. The last time I did, it nearly broke me." "I know," he said gently. "I'm not asking you to forget that. I'm asking you to believe that not everyone will hurt you." My throat felt tight. "And if I say yes, what if we fail? What if I ruin something good?" He leaned forward, eyes steady on mine. "If we fail together. And if we succeed, it's because we trusted each other enough to try. I don't want to replace your past, I want to be your future." That line, so simple, so certain, cracked something in me I hadn't realized was still frozen. For so long, every decision I made was about protecting myself, making sure no one could ever blindside me again. But here was Daniel, not trying to erase the scars, but willing to build something beautiful around them. I swallowed hard. "You're serious about this?" "Dead serious," he said with a smile. "But no pressure. Think about it." I did think about it. All day, all night. I thought about how he never pushed me to be someone I wasn't, how he noticed the little things, the way I liked my tea with too much sugar, the way I frowned when I was concentrating. I thought about how he had never once compared himself to Ethan or asked me to. By the next morning, I had my answer. I walked into the cafe before the first customer came in. Daniel was behind the counter, humming under his breath as he set out pastries. "Okay," I said. He looked up. "Okay, what?" "I'm in," I told him. "Partner." The smile that spread across his face was pure light. He came around the counter and pulled me into a hug, warm and solid. "We're going to do this right," he said against my hair. "Slow, steady, no shortcuts. Together." And for the first time in a long time, the idea of trusting someone didn't feel terrifying. It felt like hope. It started as whispers. I didn't go looking for news about Ethan. I'd learned my lesson about digging into the lives of people who had already cost me too much. But in a city like ours, rumors have a way of crawling under doors you thought you'd locked. "Did you hear about Ethan Carter?" I heard someone murmur at the office coffee machine. "Apparently, there's an internal audit. Some dodgy client contracts." I froze mid-step. My name wasn't in their conversation, but it might as well have been. I poured my tea too quickly, hot water splashing onto my hand. By the end of the week, the rumor had grown teeth. Ethan's name was in sentences with words like investigation and questioning. And in every retelling, there was Lena, the one who had convinced him to take bigger risks, the one who'd pushed him into the kind of deals that could make or break a career. I told myself it wasn't my problem. But late at night, lying next to Daniel's slow, steady breathing, my mind wandered to the Ethan I used to know. Ambitious, confident, so sure he'd climb forever. I remembered how his eyes used to light up when he talked about a new project. I wondered if he still had that light, or if Lena had snuffed it out, one demand at a time. A week later, Olivia dragged me to a friend's birthday party. "It's at the Glass Room," she said. "Music, drinks, not too wild. You need to have fun." I'd just begun to relax when I heard a voice I hadn't expected to hear again, Lena's. She was on the other side of the terrace, surrounded by two women I didn't know. Her champagne glass caught the light, and her laugh was sharp, a little too loud. "Honestly, I thought I was marrying a man with prospects," she was saying. "Now I'm stuck with someone who's one step away from unemployment." One of the women murmured something, and Lena rolled her eyes. "If I'd known he was going to tank his own career, I wouldn't have wasted my time. I could have had anyone." The words were knives, but they weren't aimed at me, not this time. Still, I felt them. The way she spoke about him, the utter absence of loyalty, reminded me of how easily she'd thrown away our friendship. I didn't realize Daniel had come up behind me until his hand brushed mine. "Hey," he said softly, glancing toward Lena. "You okay?" I swallowed, forcing my expression neutral. She's talking about Ethan. Daniel studied my face for a moment. Do you want to leave? No, I said quickly, then hesitated. Part of me feels sorry for him. He's getting exactly what he chose, but still. Daniel's voice was calm but firm. Feeling sorry for someone doesn't mean you have to invite them back into your life. You can pity him from a safe distance. I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. You're right, I just don't want to be the kind of person who celebrates someone else's downfall. He squeezed my hand. You're not, you're just human, but don't let the past poison the present. He doesn't deserve to live rent-free in your head. The music swelled, and Lena's voice faded into the crowd. But even as I smiled at Daniel and let him lead me to the dance floor, I couldn't shake the image of Ethan, not the arrogant man at that networking event, but the one I used to know, now standing in the rubble of a castle he built on sand. I didn't know whether that made me feel stronger, or just sad. The message appeared on my phone like a ghost from the past, simple, direct. Can we meet? I need to talk. It was from Ethan. My thumb hovered over the screen. Part of me wanted to delete it. Part of me wanted to scream. But something deeper, a quiet, stubborn voice, whispered that maybe this was the closure I never got. I texted back, okay, the cafe, tomorrow afternoon. That night, sleep felt elusive. My mind replayed everything, the betrayal, the heartbreak, the months of rebuilding. I steeled myself for the meeting, promising I wouldn't let the past claw its way back in. The next day, I arrived early. Daniel's cafe, our cafe, felt like home now. The scent of fresh coffee and baked goods wrapped around me like a comforting blanket. I sat at the corner table where Daniel and I had first really talked, trying to steady my racing heart. When Ethan walked in, my breath hitched. He looked older, worn around the edges, but those familiar eyes searched for me as if hoping to find a lost piece. Hi, he said softly, sliding into the seat opposite me. I nodded, keeping my expression neutral. Hi. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. The only sound was the quiet hum of the cafe and the occasional clink of cups. Finally, Ethan broke the silence. I want to apologize for everything. I was blind, stupid. I thought I was doing the right thing, but I was wrong. Lena, she never loved me. She married me for status, for money. And now she's leaving. A strange mix of pity and resentment swirled inside me. I'm sorry, I said quietly. That sounds painful. He nodded, swallowing hard. It is, but what hurts most is what I lost. You. I stared at him, my chest tightening. The woman you loved doesn't exist anymore. His eyes flickered with confusion. What do you mean? I took a deep breath. I buried her the night you betrayed her. The girl who trusted you, who dreamed of forever. It died when I opened that door and found you with Lena. His face fell, regret plain in every line. But I'm not her anymore, I continued. I'm someone who learned that love isn't begging for scraps, and that respect is earned, not demanded. Ethan looked down, unable to meet my gaze. I reached into my bag, pulling out the old bracelet he once gave me, now faded, like the memories it held. I set it on the table between us. Keep this, I said, not as a reminder of what we had, but of what I survived. He didn't say a word. I stood, smoothing my dress, feeling a strange sense of peace settle in my bones. This is goodbye, I said firmly. For real this time. Ethan's voice cracked. I wish things had been different. Me too, I said, then turned and walked out. Outside, the sun was warm on my face. I breathed in deeply, savoring the freedom that came from closing a painful chapter. I didn't look back, because the woman I am now is stronger, wiser, and ready for the future I choose to build. 2 years have passed since that day in the cafe when Ethan and I had our last real conversation, 2 years of quiet mornings, late nights, and everything in between. Daniel and I stand side by side now, not just as partners in business but in life. Together, we've grown our little cafe from one cozy corner into 4 warm, bustling spots scattered across the city. Each one holds a piece of us, our sweat, our laughter, the struggles that tested us, and the triumphs that made it all worth it. This morning, I sit here in the soft light of dawn, cradling our newborn twins, a boy with eyes so bright and curious they seem to see right through me, and a girl with my mother's stubborn chin, already full of spirit. I am overwhelmed by a love that doesn't demand perfection. It simply exists, steady, quiet, and fiercely real. Life isn't flawless. There are days when the crying baby's wails and the cafe's looming deadlines collide, and exhaustion seeps into my bones like a deep winter chill. But this life is mine, messy, beautiful, imperfect, and mine. Sometimes, when Daniel looks at me with those soft, knowing eyes, I remind myself how far I've come, from the girl who once begged for love that wasn't meant for her, to the woman who now knows what she deserves. A few weeks ago, I saw Ethan at a public gala, one of those crowded, glittering events I used to dread because it meant facing memories I thought I'd left behind. He was standing alone, at the edge of the room, looking small and lost. The confident, sharp man I once knew had faded into someone unfamiliar, someone broken by the very life he thought he had mastered. Our eyes met across the crowd. For a moment, everything seemed to freeze. I smiled at him, not with longing or regret, but with freedom. In that smile was the understanding I had been searching for all along. I finally learned the difference between being chosen and being cherished. Being chosen is easy, anyone can do that, but being cherished, that's rare. And now, I am living that truth every day. Because this life with Daniel, the warmth of his hand in mine, these tiny fingers clutching mine with fierce love, these moments filled with quiet joy, this is my true beginning.